she's making rounds in the facility, and she looks over on the couch and she sees this dog laying there. And she was wondering, where did this dog come from?
Welcome to Warm Fuzzies, a new podcast from Daily Paws. I'm your host, Karman Hotchkiss, and today we're speaking to Marna Robertson, the administrator at Meadow Brook Medical Care Facility in Bellaire, Michigan. Meadow Brook is a long-term care nursing home, but there's nothing cold or sterile about this place. The residences here are referred to as households, and each one has a welcoming name, like Cedar River House or Glacier Hill Cottage. It's a quiet place normally, but recently there's been a lot of buzz in the village of Bellaire. That's all thanks to a very determined mutt named Scout, who broke out from the nearby animal shelter not once, not twice, but 3 times to take up residence at Meadow Brook. How he did it is an incredible feat, but even more incredible is the profound difference he's made in the lives of Meadow Brook's residents and staff. Hello, and welcome to Warm Fuzzies. Our guest today is Marna, who we're talking to from Michigan. I have to tell you that the first time I heard this story, I started crying just a little bit because I found the whole idea just really, really touching. And so I can't wait to share that with everyone. Marna, thank you for being here. Would you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
My name is Marna Robertson. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm also the nursing home administrator for Antrim County's Meadow Brook Medical Care Facility. We reside in Bellaire, Michigan, and we are the home of Scout, the wonder dog, who we're going to talk a little bit about today.
It's not unheard of a care facility to have a pet in residence, but Scout came to you in a really interesting way, a way I've never heard of a care facility acquiring a pet. Can you tell us that story?
Meadow Brook we're in a rural community, and we have a highway. We're right on the highway, but it's not a very busy highway like you would think. Across the street, little kitty corner, is the animal shelter. And Scout was detained, for the lack of a better word, in the animal shelter. And one night, in the middle of a night, the nurse was making rounds. And we have a very nice lobby, has a fireplace, it's very inviting, it has a nice couch, chairs where guests and company can come and sit. And she's making rounds in the facility, and she looks over on the couch and she sees this dog laying there. And she was wondering, where did this dog come from? We have, automatic doors, but this is in the middle of the night. And so she calls the sheriff, because the sheriff's department at the time was in charge of the animal shelter, and they come and pick Scout up, and they said, yeah, he's at the animal shelter, so they take him back. And she carries on about her business. So the next night comes, and she's making her rounds, and there's the dog again. She calls the sheriff's department, and they're like, okay. So they come and get him, verify, yep, that's Scout, and they take him back. A couple days later, same thing, and it's at the middle of the night. And so she calls the sheriff's department again, and they come and take Scout. I believe in universal signs and signals, and 3 times is the charm. And so I asked the staff, I'm like, this is meant to be, this dog wants to be here. And without knowing what he did to get here, I had asked the staff, do you think anybody would like to adopt a dog? One of the staff members, she says, I'll take Scout, I'll take him home, I'll adopt him. Well, that was about a week, and Scout just wasn't happy there. So that's when I had reached out to our households, and at the time we had 7 of them. And Glacier Hill House, where Scout lives now, they said, yes, we'd love to adopt him. And so we went through that process. Unbeknownst to me, when we talked to the sheriff, he had to scale a 10-foot fence. He unlocked the doors to get out of the shelter.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't know that until we were going through the adoption for him.
He was really determined.
He was.
Has he since done any kind of Houdini escapee kinds of things, like shown how he can single-mindedly decide to get somewhere that he really wants to be?
Yes, within the facility. He's never tried to
Mhm.
leave. I mean, obviously he chose us, but in the household where he lives, there's certain places sometimes where he's not supposed to be. An example, the nurse's station. He can go in there, but sometimes it gets really busy and they have report. Well, he would flip the door latch. We had to change the door latch to more of a rounded one so he couldn't open it because yeah, he has free will and he goes where he likes to go.
He sounds like a really smart dog.
Yes.
What do you know about his life before he chose you?
We don't know a whole lot, but what we do know from the sheriff's department, he probably came from an abused environment. He had been shot with BBs because they had found BBs in him. And he was a little skittish of men in uniform and like with jingling keys. So he was a little skittish of the maintenance guys, but that didn't take long. They would bring treats and he warmed up to our maintenance men. That's about all we know. We don't know who dropped him off or where he was, originally from.
About how old is Scout?
Scout is now about 10 years old. I think the vet said he was probably 6 or 7 when he was dropped off at the shelter.
So he has been living with you guys for several years now.
Yes.
As he's continued to live there, are there certain people that he's really warmed up to or seem to also choose like you're it for me?
Yes. So in our household, we have nurses, we have nurse aides, we have household assistants, and then we have a household coordinator. Why animals choose who they do, I don't know. It's probably like people, right? We like some people, we don't like other people, and some people were like, meh. But Scout chose our household coordinator, and her name is Jenny Martinek. Jenny is his absolute number one person. He has to be with her, and he knows when she's in the building. If she's in another household, he will be at the door wanting out to be with her. Of course, she's not here 24/7, right? So he has other people on off shifts that, okay, you're my temporary person. You're not my Jenny person, but you'll do for right now until she comes back.
I hope Jenny likes dogs.
Well, that's a funny thing. She really wasn't a dog person
Ooh.
before Scout came. And now she has a couple of pups, but yeah, her and Scout have, it's just a beautiful bond that they have.
It sounds like he's the kind of dog who wins people over.
He has certain residents too that, he bonds to and that he checks, but he checks on all of them every day. He will go in and out each of the rooms, but he has a few that, he'll snuggle with and spend a little bit more time, than others. There's some residents that have special treats for him because when you come to long-term care, this is your last home, and we try and make it as home-like as possible. But by the time you're here, you've went through a lot of loss, and some of the loss is loss of pets, right? I've had to give up a pet maybe, or I've had my last pet before I've come to the facility. And Scout, him being there, his presence has made life normal and just has added to their quality of life, like our pets do.
We couldn't agree with Marna more, but right now we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll hear more from her about how Scout has brightened the lives of the residents of Meadow Brook. Welcome back to Daily Paws Presents Warm Fuzzies. Do you have any theories about why Scout picked you guys?
Well, in jest, I say it was the food. He probably smelt our food from
He
over at the
sounds
animal
very food
shelter.
motivated.
He is food motivated. I mean, what's not to like? And you can smell like, bacon and eggs and sausage cooking and that type of thing. But I think he just wanted a home. And we're a big house. I mean, I call it the big house. We're just a big home. And I think that's what he wanted. And he's obviously a people dog.
So he probably doesn't sleep on the couch in the lobby anymore.
No,
Where does Scout sleep?
wherever he wants to.
Just like my dog.
He sometimes sleeps with the residents, and we have
Interesting.
couches in the living room. We have a den, though, that he has his food and his own special bed and place because it can be a lot for an animal. You don't get a lot of downtime. And when he wants a little quiet time or or just to chill, he will go in the den and have his own space. But
Yeah.
most of the time, he's in the living room or he's in a residence room visiting.
You raise a really good point, Marna. Living with a dog in a care facility, in
Hmm.
an institution. I don't want to make it sound too
Hmm.
cold because it sounds
Hmm.
very, very homey, but caring
Hmm.
for a pet in that environment is a lot different than having a pet in your house. What are some of the things that you guys have worked out over time for how to care for a dog as well as for your residents?
Some things, it's just universal, like cleaning up after the dog. That was something that we had to work through. Keeping him out of the kitchen during the dining times. I remember my grandmother, we had a dachshund, and she was like, "You cannot be in the kitchen while I'm cooking," and getting underfoot. So, giving Scout those boundaries and those parameters too. Those were some of the things that we had to work for. His personal care, when he gets fed, watering, who's going to take him to the vet, going to the groomer. Those are things that you just kind of have to work through. And his person, Jenny, she really takes care of a lot of that stuff too.
They sound like a good
Yes,
partnership. Yeah.
yes.
Before we got started today, you were telling me a little story about something Scout did maybe yesterday, where he came to visit you.
He
And
did.
will you tell us about that?
Sure. Jenny and him were coming down the hallway, and my office doors are opened, and he popped in and decided he was going to come and say hello to me and visit with me. And I have two chairs across from my desk, and he just hopped right up there after he got his hugs and kisses and made himself at home. And then Jenny and I proceeded to have a little visit, and then he went on about his merry way and probably visited some of the office staff as well. And he always gets a treat when he comes, so that's a good motivator too for him. He likes that.
Some meetings just need a dog.
Heck, yeah, that's right. Scout's very intuitive, and one of the things in long-term care is people pass away, they die, and he knows that. He knows when somebody is at their end of life in those active dying stages, and he will be with them.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he'll go on their bed and little emotional, sorry.
Yeah, no, me too. I think,
Yeah.
yeah. What else does Scout like to do with residents? He likes to get treats. He likes to snuggle.
And he likes to participate in activities. He likes to be in the know. An example, we had somebody bring their donkeys. We had about 6 or 7 donkeys in the courtyard a couple of weeks
Wow,
ago.
this is awesome already.
Yeah, so we had the residents and the donkeys were there so they could be petted and enjoy. And Scout has to be in the thick of that. We have a trout pond, and so when the residents are fishing, he has to be out there too. He just likes seeing what's going on and being with his people and being part of the daily life.
I can totally picture the scene you've painted, that
Right.
he's just there, and I want to know,
Hmm.
and I want to be part of it.
That's right. Christmas time, Thanksgiving's coming, Halloween. We have a big open house Halloween time, so there's lots of trick-or-treaters coming through. He wants to be part of that. Christmas time when we're opening up presents, he's right there. And he gets his own presents too. He's just a big part of the family.
When you brought Scout in, what is some of the training that you needed to do with him? Like you've mentioned, setting some
Oh,
boundaries about like where you can be, but what else
mhm.
did he need to learn?
I guess when to woof appropriately. When we have visitors come in, we have people ring the doorbell. So when he hears the doorbell, he gives a bark to let the staff also know, hey, there's somebody at the door. We don't want the visitors to be afraid or fearful when he woofs. It's just to let us know, the staff, that, hey, there's somebody here, a visitor. You need to pay attention to this. One of the other things, again, the boundary thing during when the residents are having meals, he needs to stay out of the kitchen. Otherwise, he's so smart. He knows how to shake and sit, lay down, and there wasn't really a whole heck of a lot we needed to do with him.
To your point about him being really intuitive, that's something that therapy pets and just pets that spend time with people who are
Hmm.
in vulnerable positions, it's a beautiful gift that they
Yes.
bring to all of us, really.
Yes. He knows when somebody is sad or, those very vulnerable folks that are in maybe their advanced stages of dementia. He knows he'll stay by them or he'll visit them a little bit more often, maybe when they're sitting in the living room or sitting in the dining room waiting for a meal. He'll make rounds, I think, a little bit more frequently than maybe somebody that is, up and mobile and can visit kind of on their own. He tends to gravitate towards the more vulnerable folks that need that tactile type stimulation.
What would you like people to know if they're visiting a facility where there's a pet in residence?
I would say respect that household and that pet is part of their family. That pet is loved by that household and the people that live there. So you need to honor that. And also just ask, what are the boundaries? What are the parameters on how I deal with your dog or your cat or bird or whatever pet that you have?
In general, asking when somebody else's pet is involved is a really good place to start. What else should we know about Scout?
He's just such a good dog. He's a goofball. I mean, he can be stubborn in his own way. Like when he's done and he doesn't want to be out or visiting anymore, he will leave the scene and go back to his den or go back to the household. We had a car show this summer. The residents could go in the parking lot and look at all these cool classic cars. Well, they wanted Scout to come and get a picture taken with us. We had sat for just a couple of pictures and he was over it and he was like, I'm going back into the house and you can't stop me. We had, of course, on a leash and, he was tugging on that leash. So the person that was holding him, I'm like, you know what, just let him go. I unclipped the leash and man, he went charging right back in and knew exactly where he was going.
It's such a great story, and it's such a good reminder for all of us that pets have their opinions and their needs, and we have to listen to them. And even if we had something else in mind for their day.
That's right.
Well, Meadow Brook sounds like a really lovely, lovely place to live and work. And certainly there are other reasons besides Scout that it sounds like a beautiful place to be. But Scout, he knew what he was doing when he picked you guys. And it feels like he's the cherry on top at a really lovely place. Thanks for being with us today, Marna.
Oh, I appreciate your time, and I hope this makes people, more aware that there's life in long-term care facilities, and but more to the point, animals really give us so much love and joy across all spectrums, and I think that's a wonderful little story. So I hope this helps brighten people's day.
Undoubtedly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Daily Paws Presents Warm Fuzzies. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And we'd love your feedback. If you could rate this podcast and leave us a review, we'd really appreciate it. You can also find us online at dailypaws.com/warmfuzziespodcast. We hope you'll join us again next Thursday for more.